Hey guys, Duke here. Now this is not going to be a review. Again, this is going to be in reference to a question that I get asked a lot on this channel, and that is roughly, where do I buy all my masks and things of that nature. So in this video, not review, we're going to be talking about basically the ins and outs of where to find specific masks and their prices and things like that. Something that I don't normally touch base upon, just purely for a variety of factors. The main one being, is this is something that you should always consider when looking for masks, is that rarity is entirely dependent on your location and how old the masks are, how many of them were procured. It could even be down to a level of what specific county or town you live in, because some masks will pop up in great numbers in such a small area, and it's a lot harder to redistribute them depending on the outreach of the store, because they could be in a surplus store, they could be in a warehouse, they could be acquired by a surplus dealer. And again, countries play into a very big role of how rare masks are. For instance, like the M45 chemical biological mask that I have up there, that is slightly more common in the US. They may be more common in other areas. They tend to pop up in specific areas. And a lot of other international laws play into the rarity of masks as well, such as the ITAR regulations. Those are a pretty big meme that goes around in various selling communities. Just basically because these certain specific masks in the US cannot be exported, but some sellers have twisted that regulation way out of proportion, and they kind of pretty much limit all gas masks depending on their country of origin. Just whether or not they're US, they can't even export certain types of masks outside the US because ITAR, even though they don't even restrict a lot of surplus masks. They only have like a couple on their list that they specifically restrict. The big thing you also are going to want to consider if you're a seller of gas masks is that sites like eBay or just even the Postal Service, you do not want to put gas mask on the shipping label, because the customs will intercept the word gas in the description, and they will search the package, and if it's anything that's current issue, they will probably hold it and burn it. So keep that in mind as well, is that you want to be careful when you're sending masks. But if you're buying masks, again, you want to consider that masks in a specific area are going to be more common than others. So one thing that will definitely help is to branch out to various communities, like the Gas Mask Collectors community group on Facebook. And again, I'm mostly recommending this from a collecting standpoint, not really a prepping. The Gas Mask Collection Community Auction House, GMCC Auction House, whichever you prefer to call it as, and I know there's several other groups out there as well for trading and selling masks. Those are good places to start if you don't want to dig for hours on sites like eBay. eBay is probably the best place to go for just anything beginners. There is rare stuff that pops up there from time to time, but you really need to know what you're looking for, and a lot of the time you aren't going to find things based on what they're called. You sort of have to be creative with what you search up, and oftentimes a lot of people will have had tons of success finding rare masks by just looking up very vague terms. I know people who will look up the term gas mask and search for hours upon hours on eBay until they find something interesting, and just feed through all the Chinese crap and just miscellaneous junk that so happens to have the combination of the two words in the title. But that's another thing you can consider. And I know there's a lot of sort of smaller trading websites such as OfferUp or LetGo. Sometimes a lot of the M45s have actually appeared on there more than eBay as of late. But keep that in mind as well. Sometimes rare stuff will pop up on smaller, obscure websites, and of course auction websites, which are a bit harder to order from. We're kind of getting into the territory where you have to sign up for a specific account for these websites in order to get things from there. But things of that nature, stuff will pop up there. But again, the biggest place that you'll want to start out with, and again, don't just kind of hop in there and be like, give me rare masks or something like that. Like where to find this rare mask that most other people are already hunting for and nobody's ever seen. So keep that in mind. There's not a lot of, depending on what you're looking at or looking for, there's not a lot out there at your disposal. And from my experience, there are very few people who will actually answer your requests. Like if you're looking for something and you make a post looking for it, it's very, very unlikely that anyone will respond to it, even if they do have it for sale. So you really have to kind of branch out. You have to lurk a bit. It's not about interaction. It's about just kind of waiting and watching. You don't want to, start beating down everyone's neck about what you want. You got to sort of linger in the community, gain some knowledge. And part of the reason why I've been so successful collecting is that because a lot of people trust my advice on masks. Some of the bigger collectors kind of come to me from time to time, and they'll ask me questions about specific masks they don't know about, particularly US stuff, obviously because that's my niche, but that's the biggest thing that I could recommend for anyone wanting to get into a collecting, is find a specific area of masks that nobody else is really researching into, or at least very few people. I mean, obviously you can be an expert in a specific area of masks that everyone else is studying, like you could be a Russian mask expert, that's totally fine. But just, it helps to have knowledge under your belt, it helps to have a reputation on what you know, because more often than not, the way the gas mask collectors community is, we're very distrustful of a lot of random people. I know that there's a lot of spite and toxicity in the community. I'm not going to lie, I've been kind of a part of that for the longest period of time, and I'm trying to reel back on that. I'm trying to change my rhetoric here and just kind of lay back and let people do their thing. But that's kind of the thing, is that everyone is hugely distrusting of everyone else. Even people that know each other kind of have doubts on each other in specific areas. It's a really weird community, I will tell you that. There's a lot, people will hold pieces to a very high value, and there's a lot of infighting. I'm not going to get into the internal politics of the community, but that's just a thing to consider, is that you really want to lurk before you kind of hop in and expect everyone to trust you, because it just doesn't work like that in the greater community, unfortunately. You can't just hop into a place and get a rare mask instantly, unless you have a lot of money, because I know there's a couple people that will just have, they'll have a lot of money to throw at people, and, money will gain anyone's trust, I guess, but it's still not going to get you the reputation that you need as a collector. If you want to be a collector, you need to know what you're doing, essentially. Otherwise, I'm not even saying this out of just don't be dumb. I'm saying this because people will listen to you, people will respect you, people will trust you with rarer pieces, and you'll be able to have an easier time finding what you're looking for if people know what the hell you're looking for. So that's the biggest thing that I can recommend if you're looking for masks. I know it's kind of a broad thing, but there really is no major gas mask store online that you can buy some of these rarer pieces from. You really just have to branch out into the community, linger for a while, like I said, and just get people to kind of know who you are and trust you within a specific field. That isn't always the case. Like I said, there have been people that get pieces regardless of their level of knowledge or their standing in the community, but that's just down to pure luck, I suppose. That's just people who have managed to find something, and they know what it is, and they buy it. It's as simple as that, but if you're not wanting to take the approach of, lingering in the community and becoming respectable or whatever, definitely there's plenty of websites that you can, and auction groups you can check out. And again, don't expect everything to be on a silver platter. Stuff kind of comes and goes, and like I said, depending on what you're looking for and where you live, it's entirely possible that you may have to branch out and get the trust of other collectors in specific groups in order to gain a specific piece. Like, say, if you're living in the United Kingdom and you want a US M45 or M53, it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to find one on the surplus market where you live, and therefore you're going to need to gain the trust of specific people in international groups such as the GMCC auction house and so on and so forth. So keep that into consideration. Location is the biggest impediment, I think that's a word, to acquiring specific pieces, depending, again, on your geographical location and where you reside. And also, obviously, the rarity of certain pieces may be a big hindrance to acquiring them. So, say, for instance, what's a good example? Like, for instance, see this Draeger Volga 6 mask model 60 diving mask? These are practically unheard of in the US. You can't ever find these, and I had to go after looking specific pieces like this, which aren't even gas masks or diving masks. There's a lot of different communities which you have to look into, because masks which have a defined purpose to them, whether they be military, industrial, or law enforcement, or just some other random thing like mine rescue or diving such as this, you're going to want to look in or look up things that are related to that occupation. If people assume a mask is for something, they will list it as such even if they don't know the name. A lot of the time, rarer masks will not be listed by their designation. But say, instance, for this, I did not get this on a site in the US. I didn't get this through eBay. I actually had to deal with I got it off of a website called divingbell.nl. It's a Dutch website, so I actually imported this from the Netherlands. Much like a lot of my other diving masks, like the Volga 6 mask model R168. I got that off of the same website as well. Big shout out to them, I guess, but again, that's just an example. There's a lot of things to consider when finding rarer masks. A lot of them are not going to just pop up on eBay just due to their rarity or the fact that, that's basically just it. They're rare, and they're pretty much kind of isolated within their own country, and most people aren't willing to do internationally. Even I'm not willing to do international just because it's a big hassle to do. I don't like dealing with custom forms and tariffs. I don't like figuring all that out. So anyone that buys from me, I typically recommend to use proxy buyers in the U.S. that's willing to do international. That's a big thing that can work to your advantage, is having a friend who can ship things to you from a specific country to your location in another country. So that's another thing to consider as well, is proxy buyers and proxy shippers are a big essential tool if the seller is not willing to ship internationally. You got to make friends. That's the biggest key to success, in my opinion, is to really establish yourself in the community as a respectable, or just someone that people trust. You don't seem like just some random person that's kind of going around. It's like, I like masks, I want to buy a rare mask, because that's. I know I get a lot of flack for saying things like that. A lot of people have this internalized feeling that everyone should just get masks whenever they want, no effort put in. And yes, I'm all for that, but really, this is a historical hobby from the very beginning, and a lot of people take seriously the value of specific masks, even though that the value is constantly changing. I'll give you a good example of that in a moment, but that's kind of the big thing with this community, is that you really have to get people to trust that you'll take care of the masks. That's like the biggest deal breaker out of anything. If people think that there's a possibility that you're going to mistreat the mask, they will not sell to you, they will not consider selling to you. People need to know what your intentions are when you're buying the mask. They need to know more about you as a collector, essentially. So that's kind of the big thing. I know I've caught a lot of flack because of my personal lifestyle, which isn't even related to my hobby, but the greater majority of the community that actively knows me, like say in the GMCC or elsewhere, they trust me because they know how I treat my masks. They're not just some person on 4chan or Reddit looking at me from afar and kind of delving into the drama of my lifestyle and just kind of going like, hey, look at that guy, he likes this and this, and I hate him or something. He shouldn't own those rare masks, when it's like, you don't even know me. I'm just some guy on the internet to you. Meanwhile, I'm in these communities and people know and trust me. So again, I'm not trying to give myself lip service here. I'm just kind of presenting myself as an example of how I got all this crap. I know that because, again, it's tying into the question of how I got all these masks, and I've been rambling on for quite some time now. I'm sure you're all bored of this, and most of you probably clicked off by this point. If you haven't, kudos. I truly appreciate the ones that watch this far. But again, I'm just kind of vicariously venting the weird mechanics of the internal politics of the community. I'm using big words, I know, I'm a big pseudo-intellectual. But yeah, that's basically the gist of everything. I can't really explain anything more. But again, also keep into consideration, I meant to get back to this, is that masks, again, the rarity will fluctuate. Like, for instance, the tan ANP VP-F1, they're often called Polish MP5s. They're not. They're the French model. The ARFA, or the military ones, are called ANP VP-F1s. The actual ARFAs have a different harness system, which I haven't seen, so anyone calling them ARFAs are technically incorrect, but they're right in saying that they're French ones. So the ones that were tan-colored, those used to be a holy grail mask. Nobody used to see those on the market whatsoever. Then I know people who would infight over like who got the few examples that were existing on the market. People would fight tooth and nail and pay upwards of $500 in order to get those tan ones. And then all of a sudden, all these tan ones came on the market, and some of these inexperienced collectors came in, and just everyone. I was laughing because I wasn't one of the people who was going after one of those, but it was just kind of hilarious to see, such a rare and coveted mask just become worthless over the course of a couple weeks. So keep that into consideration as well. Certain masks, which are rare by foreign export standards, they will become common eventually as they're surplus, potentially. Not always the case. Some countries have weird surplus management laws, and they'll just burn all their old equipment that they're no longer using, but some of them will just dump them on the surplus market immediately for whatever reason. So that's a good thing, obviously, but keep that into consideration as well. Rarity will change. Rarity, the value of specific masks will greatly fluctuate, which is why I don't really like to appraise gas masks. I don't like to say, this is how much this costs, because that's based entirely on my experience. You really have to gain your own understanding on how much a mask is worth, and that's not always going to be an easy task. You really kind of have to work your way up and buy certain masks, and it's just something that you've got to learn for yourself. So again, that's another thing to consider, is that I do not like to put prices on masks because it is entirely subjective. I could say that a M53 here, this is worth on, MSRP, this is worth $1,200. I got mine for $300. It's all about knowing people. And again, these may change in price eventually. Maybe, maybe not. These may go up, they may go down. Who knows? There's a lot of masks that you really need to consider. Like these 3M7800S, these used to be over $100. I never used to see these for under $150 on eBay, and I paid like $99 for mine. That was back when that was like the cheap price for one of these, and now these are commonly found for around $50 or under, if it's a specific size or if it's used or something. But yeah, these used to be expensive. Now they're cheap-ish. I say that relative because this is mainly speaking in the U.S. market. I got Butterfingers, but so yeah, and other things like obviously COVID-19 plays a major part. Certain world events will greatly impact the price of gas masks. Say, a good example is after 9/11, Israeli Model 4A1 masks that are worth $30 to $40 now when they're brand new. Back during 2001, after the September 11th terrorist attacks, those skyrocketed to over $200 for an Israeli mask. I know you're probably thinking I'm insane. You're thinking that's such a great, such a hugely inflated price, but you got to consider the surplus market was a lot smaller back then, and people were a lot more opportunistic to capitalize off of events like this. So, whereas today you kind of have people price gouging, like M40A1s. Those used to be $50. Those, like a complete kit was worth around $50 to $70 brand new. Sometimes they went for $100 if you were lucky, but most of the time, most experienced collectors weren't willing to pay in the U.S. more than $60 to $80 for a brand new kit. Nowadays, I've been seeing them go as high up as $300, which is definitely price gouging outrageous, but another part of that is people are willing to take bigger risks for price because M40s and just any U.S. military mask in general is one of those things that's banned on eBay because of their weird ITAR detection bullshit. They have a weird automatic detector that's like, hey, this has a military designation, and that might be something that we don't want exported outside of the country, regardless if the seller is even offering international shipping or not. They don't look at that. They look at the fact that it says M40, that sounds military and scary, and so the automatic detection system will just immediately take down your listing. So more people are willing to take risks because of COVID-19, and the caveat is that they don't care if they lose their account. They made $300 off of a $60 mask, and that's all that matters to them. So that's another thing to consider, is that pandemics and global crises will greatly impact the price of masks. Another good example, obviously, is Millenniums. These, I used to be able to find these as cheap as $40 in some rare instances. Nowadays, $300 and up. That's the going park for these, the ballpark for these. It's kind of outrageous. And these filters here, I can't even find these anymore. I could find like huge lots of them. The MSA OptiFilter XLs. I actually meant to buy more of these, but now they're just gone, which I'm a little bit irritated about because I actually love these filters. They're great particulate filters. But yeah, I can't find them anymore because of COVID-19. Everyone bought them up. So that's a bit unfortunate, but that's just the thing you got to consider when collecting, is that things like that, specific locations, specific stocks, and global crises can greatly impact how much something costs and how common they are. So I think I've been rambling for far too long now. I think I've covered everything I need to. If I haven't, the comments will be open. Feel free to leave your comments, questions, corrections, or concerns down in the comments below. I am Duke, and I will see you all later.